Artlist.io.
Start with the ACC, I guess. The ACC, not really a surprise seeing Duke and Louisville in the final game. Um, Louisville and Clemson kind of interchangeable to go to that final game, but Louisville just came out on top. Duke, you can say they had an easy route, but it's the ACC and Duke is Duke. Um, that UNC game didn't surprise me. I mean, UNC did look good, but it's Duke. Even though they didn't have Cooper Flag, but North Carolina doesn't have bigs anyway, and Maluak just slammed him in the paint. RJ Davis is good, but him and Cam Cadeau got kind of buried by Tyrese Proctor and Colin Kniffel. So no surprise that Duke ends up in the championship there. And they again don't play Cooper Flag, trying to get him ready for tournament. They think they can win by not playing him, and then they do. They beat Louisville by 11. Not really a surprise for me. I could have told you that Duke was going to lose without Cooper Flag, but when Con Knippel goes for 34 and shoots 70% from the field in the ACC championship, and then Charlie Hepburn and Terrence Edwards Jr. don't shoot over 50% combined from the field as a guard pair, and they're one of the best backcourts in the ACC, if not the best backcourt in the ACC. It's a problem, and I think that Louisville's performance, even though they did end up in the ACC championship, is the ultimate reason why they got dropped to an 8 seed in the in the NCAA tournament. And nothing against Louisville. This has been a great year for them, but Duke is playing on another level right now. And in my NCAA tournament video, I will explain to you why I think Duke got robbed, even though they're still at a 1 seed. But on to the Big 12 tournament. The Big 12 tournament, I didn't really, that's the one tournament I didn't watch a lot of. I was very, very focused on the SEC and the Big 10 over the weekend. But in that Big 12 tournament, we got to see Iowa State try to prove that they were still at the top of the Big 12. And they started to. They were in a very good place coming into the Big 12 tournament, winning their last two regular season games after a 5-game skid. And then they come into the Big 12 tournament. They win a couple games. They ultimately lose, but it proved a lot, and it gave them that tournament push to get that. I think they're at a 3 or a 5. I don't exactly remember, but I think they're at a 3, and that gave them that spot. And Kansas tried to prove some teams wrong, couldn't get it done. But ultimately, I don't think anybody had a chance of beating Houston in the Big 12. I think your chance of beating Houston is the SEC, and we'll get to see that. They'll play Tennessee in the Elite Eight. I think that's their first SEC matchup of the tournament. So I don't think we see Houston losing until the Elite Eight, possibly the Final Four, when they would play Alabama or Duke. Um, but I'll get into that in the NCAA tournament video. But the Big East, and I don't think St. John's is a surprise here. They on an 18-game winning streak at the end of the regular season. They've got uh, probably a top 3 finalist in Coach of the Year, one of the most improved players in the league, not the league, in college basketball. And then you've got probably the best perimeter defender in college basketball outside of Zakai Ziegler on the same team for St. John's. Um, and I thought Creighton looked great. UConn looked good. All these teams looked so good in the Big East tournament. And then they get to St. John's and they get beat bad. And I thought that the St. John's game in the championship with Creighton was going to be close. The Creighton or UConn. I don't remember exactly who, but it's I expected it to be close. It just wasn't. Even if the scoreboard was looking good at halftime, like they were only up like 5, they came out the second half and just destroyed them. They won the fouls, they won the rebounds, they won just about every stat category you can, and it's hard to lose if you win stat categories. It's very hard to lose at that point. Um, but moving on to the Big Ten, kind of a surprise here. I did not think Michigan State or Purdue were going to lose when they did. Purdue lost their first game, I think, um, on an upset. But I did not think Michigan and Wisconsin would be in the championship. I thought it was going to be Michigan State and Purdue. But Michigan State loses to Michigan, and Wisconsin was in the championship. Wisconsin beat Michigan State, and Michigan beat Maryland. Yeah, so Michigan and Wisconsin, going into that game, I kind of watched a little bit of it. I expect Wisconsin to beat them. Wisconsin is better spacing. They look to have better defense. They put up better numbers on a game to game basis. But the problem with them is they aren't they have no depth. They are able to play 6 or 7 guys for those 35 minutes, and then they have to rely on guys to come in for 5-10 minutes at a time because they can't keep up with big competition. In the tournament, they might be able against these smaller teams to go a little bit deeper to save some energy for these guys that play 35 minutes a game. But when it gets to the third round and maybe even the second round, depending on who they have to play, if they get an SEC or another Big 12 team, they'll have to stop using that depth, and I think it'll come back to hurt them. But with Michigan, Michigan has depth. They've got defense. They've got length. They've got strength. They have the rebounding energy. Their defense is on another level this year. Um, I think they have one of the most underrated coaches in the Big Ten, if not the most underrated coach in the Big Ten. He looks great. He took over after Juwan Howard, which was a very bad situation in Michigan. And he's finally, after 3 years, has got them back where they're supposed to be. They're at a 5 seed. They're supposed to be a little bit better, but I think it's a great improvement for them, especially with not having any superstar players. Now on to the best conference in basketball. We're going to talk about the SEC to close us out today. The SEC tournament is what I was focused on all weekend, not just because I'm a Kentucky fan, but because it's my favorite kind of basketball. We see some very good first round games. We see Texas, after they beat Vandy, go into a game against Texas A&M where they're a 7.5 point underdog. They're losing by 2 to 3 almost the entire game. They get down by 10 up at one point with 5 minutes to go. They bring it back and they win in overtime, double overtime actually, and it caused the next 2 games to be delayed by a lot. I think and then the next game was the Missouri game. I think it was Missouri and who did Missouri play? I don't remember who Missouri played that night. I don't know, but it caused it to be really late. But Kentucky was supposed to tip off at 9:30, and they didn't tip off until 10:50, and it didn't close out until probably like after 1 a.m. It was a very late night, but we watched Kentucky get twice in a row against Oklahoma with Otega Owe going 94 feet for a last second layup. It was great. Everybody was electric, and it was very, very fun to watch. The next round features Auburn and Auburn sloshes them, of course. No surprise. Um, Florida gets Missouri. Florida beats Missouri. Not that big of a deal. Tennessee gets Texas. Close game, very close game. Tennessee comes out on top, probably because of their defense. And then it comes down to Alabama and Kentucky on a delay again. I've got to get up at 4 a.m. the next day, but you know what? We're here. We're going to watch it. We're going to stick through. And we're down by 15 at halftime. Not a surprise because we're a second half team. We come out in the second half. We start off pretty good, but then Lamont Butler gets hurt again. He's out of the game. Andrew Carr's missing shots. Amari Williams is turning the ball over. Otega Owe can't get to the lane. I don't know why. He just couldn't get to the lane. And Mark Sears decides he's going to become the best point guard in college basketball for the night. And they beat us by 29. I don't think it's a surprise that we got beat, but I think we should have had it a lot closer than it was. And then moving on to the Final Four, it's the 1, 2, 3, 4 seeds. Usually not something you see in the SEC, but it happens. Started off with Auburn and Tennessee. It was a close game, back and forth the entire time. Janai Broom would hit a shot, and then Darko Milicic would hit a shot. And then Zakai Ziegler would go crazy, and then you have Miles Kelly start hitting shots, and it was back and forth, very defensive game because this Tennessee, best perimeter defensive team in college basketball, Auburn, best post defensive team in college basketball. It's a great matchup. Five probably players that like you could probably make an all SEC team out of Tennessee's best five and Auburn's best five if you really wanted to. They're great teams, coached by great coaches. Um, but ultimately, Tennessee starts to pull away late in the second half, and Auburn has to play the fouling game. And unfortunately, they have to foul Zakai Ziegler, who is like a 93% free throw shooter. So not much you can do there. But the game that was probably very like one of the best moments for me is watching Florida and Alabama. I was very tired after a long car ride, but it was a very fun game to watch. I was able to tune in when Florida was starting to pull away. It was very close with 10 minutes to go in the first half, and then Florida starts to pull away. They go up six or eight at halftime, and they come out in the second half and don't look back, and they win by 22. It was great to watch that after Alabama taking down Kentucky the round before, um, with Florida going to the championship against Tennessee. They're the favorite. They look great, and it doesn't look like Florida can be stopped at this point. They haven't lost in weeks. They're on a generational run, winning every game by double digits in the SEC tournament so far. And then we get to this Tennessee game. Comes out of the gates. Tennessee looks hot. They're not missing shots. Milicic makes his first threes. This guy Ziegler is getting to the lane. They're up like 8-3. And then Elijah Mitchell comes down, dunks it on Milicic. Walter Clayton comes down, hits a step back three over Zakai Ziegler. It looks like it's going to be a great matchup, and that's what it becomes. Set at halftime, tied game. Getting into the second half, we've got multiple guys in foul trouble for both teams, but Florida has that depth. When you take two bigs out, they just put two bigs right back in, and that's what's great about Florida, and that's why I think Florida succeeds so much. Is they if you get them in foul trouble, they have two guys that maybe not just as good, but are very good complementary bigs that can just come in, and it doesn't matter. Tennessee, you get your two guys in foul trouble, you have one good guy and one guy that doesn't get to play a lot that has to come in and is not used to the reps. And that's what happened. Like they started to get buried by the bigs, and it was just what let Walter Clayton do his thing. He was able to get to the lane, he was able to get to the mid range where he shines. And Zakai Ziegler was missing in the second half. I'm not saying it's on him. It's definitely not on him at all. But I think one, Tennessee got outcoached. Um, Florida's coach is very good. I like him a lot, even though I don't like Florida. Um, but in this SEC tournament with Florida's matchups, I found myself cheering for Florida because I despise Alabama. I despise Tennessee. Auburn's all right. I hate Missouri with a passion. So just to see Florida take down three teams that I don't like as a Kentucky fan and that I just don't like, period, it was very nice to see. Um, and I know I'm not supposed to say this because it's not the NCAA tournament video, but Florida is my uncontested pick to win it all. They look great right now with their depth, their ability to defend, their ability to get boards, and their ability to get the shots that they want. They're full of shot creators.